You ready? Time now is 5:30. We'll call the Leesburg City Commission meeting to order. We could all stand for an invocation, followed by a pledge of allegiance to the flag. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for this wonderful time to live in such a city, the great city of Leesburg, Florida. We thank you for the city manager, all the staff that makes Leesburg such an efficient and effective city. To our residents, those people who, God, live in our city, who make our city what it is. We pray for them. We pray, God, tonight as we talk and discuss, God, improvements to our city. We pray for your wisdom, your guidance, that you can give us the best decision for the affect those people in the most positive way possible. We thank you for the troops around the world that are fighting for the freedom that we so enjoy. As we reflected on 9/11, so many people lost their lives, God, for the great country. We remember them. We pause to remember. We shall not forget. So we strive to make Leesburg a better place, as make America a better place that we all can live and enjoy. We ask all these blessings in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight we have no proclamations, no presentations. Tab 4 is for public comments. This section reserved for members of the public to bring up matters of concern or opportunities for praise. Issues brought up will not be discussed in detail at this meeting. Issue will either be referred to the proper staff or will be scheduled for consideration at a future city commission meeting. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, please. Are there any public comments tonight? Since we have no public comment, we'll move to the consent agenda, where routine items are placed on the consent agenda to expedite the meeting. If the commissioner staff wish to discuss any item, the procedure is as follows. Pull the items from the consent agenda, vote on remaining items with one roll call vote, and discuss each pulled item and vote by roll call. Are there any items tonight that we would like to pull?
B1.
Okay. Any other?
C3.
C3. All right, entertain a motion to approve the remaining items.
Move for approval.
For a second?
Second.
Then move to properly second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Commissioner Burry,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Mayor Christian.
Yes. Item B1 is a resolution. Would someone like to introduce it, please?
I'll introduce, has to be read by title only.
Thank you.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a change order to the professional services agreement with CPH, Inc. for the conceptual design of the Pine Street improvements and engineering services as part of downtown improvements for an amount not to exceed $297,020 and providing an effective date.
Do I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Move to properly second. Commissioner Connell?
Yeah, I have several questions on this. I understand this is part of the, I guess, the Main Street master plan. But, I mean, we're speaking about spending another $297,000 on engineering, if you will, before we even get to the project, which is probably going to be close to $3 million. I just feel like I'd like to see some other projects proposed in the city that would, and then let the commission make a decision on what best benefits the community as a whole, what we're getting the most bang for the buck for. I mean, that's a lot of money to spend on one road that just connects Canal to Lake Street. I just think that we have more needy projects in the city, and I would like to kind of have a choice of where we're spending $3 million at and not just earmark it to one road.
Any other commissioners?
Well, he'll appreciate my comment. Yeah, Commissioner Connell, I'm still trying to get used to these government prices. And you've heard my talk on that before. The 297 probably doesn't shock me. It is high. Is $3 million the number to fix Pine Street? We did talk about it in the master plan. I thought he was going to say $1 million. He said $3 million. I kind of sat up in my chair.
we don't have an engineer's estimate on this. Are you saying 2, Cliff? Cliff thinks it's probably in the ballpark of 2. So just a couple discussion points, and obviously we'll go wherever the commission wants to go on this project. But just as some background, when we did the master plan, the downtown master plan, I guess we finished and adopted that in 18, if memory's chamber, from downtown groups, and from different feedback. So LPG put that together for us. And like I say, we came up with a number of projects in there. Pine Street was a concept in there. The Market Street concept was another. As far as streets go in downtown area, trails, those are some of the things off the top of my head. We also talked about the gateways, 3rd Street Gateway, Gateway here, Canal and Dixie, which you guys did move pop kind of fashion. So there you go. That's why it's before you. As far as a budget price, yeah, I probably think probably 2 to 3 million is probably where you're at for construction and engineering. We are finishing up a concept on this now. I would say the concept is about 80% complete. Before making a presentation to the commission on this publicly, though, I thought it was the next correct step would be go back to the interest group meeting to get more feedback for the commission prior to your review. So I don't think anything's out of sequence in paying for the contract. We negotiated the best price we could with CPH. Yeah, I think it's probably a little tweaky high, but I don't think it's crazy high. So that's where we're at. We deemed it was an important project. I think the other thing I would add on that is not because it came from the master plan, it was a project that the community envisioned and directed. But I think too, the other concepts that I would point out in that is the safety aspect and the economic development aspect of it. So remember, the terminus of the project is lake to canal. So on the lake side, a big stakeholder in this project is the hospital, and making sure that improvements are made to Pine Street that does get a lot of traffic that's in front of the hospital with pedestrian speed bumps, or not speed bumps. We don't do speed bumps. We do raised tables. Then we have the concept is that has a roundabout at Rambo and Pine, again for traffic calming. And then as we move kind of back into the commercial corridor of Pine Street, call that Childs or Rambo, that halfway between us of that block towards Canal, you get the more commercial feel and you get the pool side of that. So the project, I think, fits into the scope of the improvements that we're making in that area. Frankly, I think the real blessing is when we put together the Main Street, or when we put together the downtown master plan, my overall concern was going to be funding the projects with Pine Street and the Market Street concept being the big animals in that design, in that master plan. So with the American Recovery Act monies, Pine Street fits into this really well, because you accomplish that. You accomplish one of the major goals from the master plan, and you get to use federal dollars to finish it. So that helps us tackle other projects in the master plan that may not be a qualifier for the project with the American Recovery Act monies. So why American Recovery Act monies on this is because of the two or three components that nicely fit into what the funds are used for. One is a stormwater improvement utility project, and then the second is a project that benefits those affected from COVID the most, and that's the minority community. That's a big part of the American Recovery Act uses. So you had businesses in that corridor that had been affected by COVID, so this reinvigorates that corridor and it helps assist them. And there's almost a catch-all in the American Recovery Act for money that's spent inside a census tract where you have a majority-minority population. So for those reasons, that those pieces fit nicely together. I appreciate Commissioner Cannell's concern about other projects. This project is, I would say, a little bit of a carryover from previous commissions. So we'll take your direction, but I think it's one that you do want to knock off the books. I think it's a place that we want to invest to improve with blight and other conditions and make safer. Pine Street is a historic corridor. We've invested significantly there at the pool, and so we'll take your direction.
You know, the price, I guess, I'm not going to go off on that. I already grumbled about that. But in the master plan, Market Street and Pine Street were, I think my priorities, the commission's priorities. And after we put the pool there, I think, with the pool there, we have to fix the road, really. I'm just, the price, it's hard for me to believe it's that much money. But
It was, and that's another part of this project too. I don't think it was in stone, or we might have put it in stone a little bit, but there was when we chose the Pine Street site for the pool, there was the concept of reinvesting in Pine Street and improving that corridor. So, again, I understand where Commissioner Cannell is coming from. I can certainly see that, but, there was a little bit of a shift there in the commission from when this was talked about in the pool project, and, it was about a 3, 4, I don't want to say 5-year coming, but
Well, some of us, it's been 25, 30 years.
so there's the other
yeah.
side of the perspective.
So and just from the perspective of residents of Pine Street, I mean, I appreciate Commissioner Cannell's comments, but with the pool being there and you have residents and business owners in the Pine Street area who waited for this project 30 plus years, before 1997. So this community have seen many other city projects, leapfrog, downtown from the one-way to the brick and pavers, so everything. And I think Al said something that's key that we shouldn't miss, that in the master plan, how do we fund these projects? We can do all the plans we want to, but the projects, how do you pay for it? So if we're gonna say other projects, they have to fit the funding mechanism of the American Recovery Act. And I don't know any of the projects that we put in the master plan and commissions prior that we could say fits in the master plan and can get funded by the American Recovery Act. So for me, I think those are key proponents where it's almost a no-brainer for us to say master plan, swimming pool, and pay for through federal funds, and it fits that bill. I think that is a winner for me with the Pine Street. And it's something that the community has waited for many years. I think it's way overdue. I don't think we can find another project, a road project, wastewater project in the city that will trump this project and get funded by the federal dollars. So,
Just a couple things I want to add to that. I'm not saying I'm completely opposed to the project. My point is, $3 million is a lot of money to spend on one single road, especially a road, in my opinion, that I don't know has enough traffic to warrant that. As far as the pool goes, I would suspect most people going to the pool are going to access this from Canal and come back to Canal to the intersection of Dixie. As far as traffic concerns for LRMC, I'm sure that can be addressed with speed bumps or whatever if they're concerned with the speed going through there. My last question, I don't know if it'd be for Al or for Fred, but is, I understand it's part of the master plan, but I don't know this commission is required to comply with the master plan that was already approved, that master plan couldn't be deviated from.
No, yeah, you can certainly deviate from the master plan. That's, the master plan is a plan. It was adopted by this body, but this body changes, goals change. So as you can deviate from the master plan. But the immediate part of your question was, why was this project chosen? It was because in previous years we put together a master plan, so we went to the shelf, and that's why this one got funded. My suggestion would be, I don't know as far as recovery monies go and where else you would spend we're going to have this discussion again later tonight on where you spend the recovery money. And sure, there's other worthy projects, and again, I think that becomes kind of a legislative priority, and where the commission wants to go, we just put forth the recommendations. But no, you should not feel bound by the master plan. The master plan was a guide, and that's why the project landed on your desk.
I would like to see personally some alternative projects, and let's weigh them out for for the most bang for your buck the city's going to get for $3 million before we approve to spend this kind of money. And Al can put together what projects would qualify for the American Recovery Act with that money.
Mr. Burr?
Yeah, my position on it is we spent an awful lot of money to put a jewel on that road in the swimming pool, and I feel like we need to upgrade Pine Street. If this is the amount of money we have to spend, then it's what we need to spend.
Mr. Roebuck?
And I'll say, also, I think it's a good project. I think I do understand where Commissioner Cannell is coming from. If you were to just weigh this out, from an ROI perspective compared to some other projects we do, the return, isn't great given the traffic concerns, the kind of fewer amount of people that it's going to impact. But I do think, as a commission, I think in the past we've done a good job, and I think it's important going forward to balance out the projects that kind of clean up areas where we haven't invested over time, even if it's not the maybe the best project from an investment standpoint, because those communities have been overlooked, while also making sure to prioritize the ones that do kind of bring in economic development. When you look at what we spent on Main Street, Venetian Gardens, let's see, we've done Dixie, we've done 441 with the landscaping, and we've got DOT looking at 27. We can't do anything with 27 currently until DOT comes back with something. I think we do have a good balance of projects. If every project we're doing looked like this one, I would have concerns, but I think that's kind of our job is to mix the projects up and the areas we're spending money. So so I'm supportive of this project.
One last question. The number I say is big. We're not going to do any more of these. This does not include these arches and gateways, is it? Is this?
No, this project is a little bit of a widening to a more standard. Actually, it's widened, but the lanes are narrower, and we narrow the lanes for traffic calming, and then we talk about sidewalks, landscaping, street lights, drainage improvements, the roundabout, some brick type of embellishments in intersection areas, and the on-street parking.
Are there any public comment? No, go. Yeah. Yes, sir. Come to the microphone, Mr. Hepburn. Give us your name and address, please.
Right.
Yeah, my name is Randy. Last name is Hepburn. Born and raised in Leesburg. Matter of fact, born on Pine Street. Born on Pine Street. Probably, how many commissioners up here is actually from Leesburg besides the Roebuck and Barry?
What you mean, man?
Pastor Christian. I've seen it when it's been the worst. My mother, my aunt, two of my aunts, owned restaurants on Pine Street. If you can remember a few years ago, the City of Leesburg and the hospital was sued. They were sued for discrimination from the City of Leesburg and that hospital right there. My mom was put out of business because they came in and said she needed, the hospital and the city got together to take the property on Pine. They came in and said, well, what we gonna do, you gotta put in a $20,000 fire suppression system. You couldn't do that back then when my mom had her business. My aunt, they had to shut their businesses down. And that was my only way of living. My mom had ran that business over 50 years. And I hadn't seen too much improvement on Pine Street as of to this day, and I'm 65 years old and was born and raised on Pine Street. So I can tell you, but if you don't know the history of Pine, you can look me up anywhere, get with Pastor Christie, and I can tell you the history of Pine Street. Born and raised there. I don't know nobody else in here that was born and raised on Pine Street. So it's very important to me to see a big improvement. Right now, it's no memory of much of nothing down there now. Nothing. So if this city would go ahead and consider upgrading and beautifying, it'll make a heck of a big difference. It'll make a difference to me. It'll make me feel good. Because we had to wind up filing a lawsuit and got compensated for the lawsuit against the hospital and the city of Leesburg. So I just want you to know a little bit of the history of Leesburg. So I don't think you can go wrong no kind of way at all about doing the beautification on Pine Street.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other public?
Good evening. I'm Betty Stevens Coney. I was not reared on Pine Street. However, I was reared in Leesburg. I am from the era where Pine Street was considered the business district for our community. As Randy had stated, there were many businesses on Pine Street, some of every business you can think of. Every business except a church. I don't think there was a church on Pine Street. However, what I want to say is our entire community is looking forward to the remaking, the revitalization of Pine Street. And of course, we are starting with the Aquatic Center, and our community is looking forward to that as well. We're also looking forward to hundreds of people coming in as part of that revitalization on Pine Street. We are anticipating one of the largest in the state of Florida, right on Pine Street. As I was coming in, I asked Randy if he had all of the names assembled of people who used to have businesses on Pine Street. He said yes. He's even collecting pictures. So my stance here tonight is to further drive the issue home of revitalization of Pine Street and making it as attractive, as viable to not only the community, but the state of Florida. That's our vision. So please, please, let us continue in this forward vein of making Pine Street one of the most viable business districts in the state of Florida. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Coney. Any other public comment? And this time we'll do a roll call, and I'll be abstaining. Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Roebuck?
Yes.
Commissioner Burry? Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
No.
And Mayor Christian abstain.
All right, we go to item C3 is a resolution. Would someone like to introduce it, please?
I'll introduce it, to be read by title only.
Thank you.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, approving a proportionate share agreement entered into by and between the School Board of Lake County, Florida, Hanover 623 Holdings, LLC, and the City of Leesburg, Florida, to allow for payment of Lake County school impact fees and providing an effective date.
Have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Move and approve. Commissioner Roebuck.
Yeah, and so I just pulled this because we hear from everyone that comes up about new developments that who's going to pay for the schools, and we don't have enough schools, and So this is how it works. This is a development that was approved that hasn't even started construction yet. And before they start, they're gonna have to pay $1.6 million up front, and they're gonna pay a total of $4.8 million for school impact fees for a relatively small development. And then they're gonna pay ad valorem taxes forever, and, you know, which will be, I think, in this development, it was a couple $100,000 a year. So I just thought I would point out that, yes, when the developments come, they do have to pay for the schools.
Thank you, sir. Any other commission comment, public comment? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Burry,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Mayor Christian.
Yes. 6 is our public hearings. So item 6 says a second reading. Would someone like to introduce it, please?
Introduce and ask for read by title only.
Thank you.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, renaming Dunlin Street, being an existing street shown on the plat of Lake Denham Phase 3, as recorded in Plat Book 73, page 63, Public Records of Lake County, Florida, lying in Section 3, Township 20 South, Range 24 East, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Moving to proper second. Discussion from the commission? Discussion from the public? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Commissioner Burry,
Yes.
Mayor Christian.
Yes. Next items are first readings. Item 6B1. Someone like to introduce it, please?
I'll introduce to be read by title only, please.
Thank you.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, annexing certain real property consisting of approximately 1,088 plus minus acres, being generally located east of U.S. Highway 27, north of Dewey Robbins Road, and south of County Road 48, lying in sections 24 and 25, Township 20 South, Range 24 East, and sections 20, 29, 30, 31, 32, Township 20 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida, providing that said property so annexed shall be liable for its proportionate share of the existing and future indebtedness of said city, providing that such annexed property shall be subject to all laws and ordinances of said city, as if all such territory had been a part of the City of Leesburg at the time of passage and approval of said laws and ordinances, providing that such annexed territory shall be placed in City Commission District 3, and providing an effective date.
Do we have any discussion from the commission tonight? Do we have any public comment? This will be a first reading, so we will not vote on it tonight. Are there any comments, anything you'd like the commission to consider tonight? Yes, sir.
My name is Reginald Thomas. I live in Howey in the Hills. I'd be remiss to repeat what I said in one of the earlier meetings. I was a realtor for 20 years amongst other things, and one of the things that I want to state, and especially to my neighbors, one of the things you always got to realize is that there's a direct correlation between the value of your property and the schools. We've already discovered through the commission at a previous meeting that if some of these, especially this subdivision, goes through, we're going to end up with schools that are overcrowded. And one of the things that you need to understand is that none of this, you're doing a disservice to the community when your schools are not up to par. I've said this before. If you go to some of the websites like greatschools.org, all three of the schools, the elementary school, the middle school, and the high school, are performing at 2 of 10. All right? That's absolutely abhorrent. And and I don't have any school-age kids anymore. I have grandchildren now. But they don't live in Florida. The thing that you need to understand is fix your schools first before you start annexing properties all over the place and trying to make Leesburg as big as possible, as far from the center of town. Fix the schools before you start these projects. I would have very little to say if this was a 55-plus community, because you're not dealing with the schools. You are cheating the people. People that are buying in those subdivisions are going to be cheated because you can't provide the proper services at the schools. You don't have any plans right now for more schools in the Leesburg area right now that I know of. So rather than going out and starting to move in areas like Howley in the Hills and building up these huge subdivisions with 3,200 residences and, you know, saying that you're not targeting.
Mr. Thomas, you got about 20 more seconds.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You got my message.
Just for the sake of the record, each speaker will be allowed 3 minutes, and I just ask that you adhere to the 3 minutes, be respectful as much as possible. This is our first reading, so we are trying. I try my best when people come out of their house to come to a meeting to at least have them something to say. If you want to say something, give opportunities. So at this time is your time to speak for 3 minutes, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. Tara Tedrow, Lowndes Law, 215 North Eola Drive, Orlando, Florida. I'm here on behalf of the applicant for the first reading items, all 3 of them tonight. I was going to do a consolidated presentation. I'm at your will as to how you would prefer I do that, whether I wait for the next item or go ahead and do that now. But to save everybody's time, I did consolidate my presentation on all 3 items into one.
Would the commission like to hear? Okay, just go ahead and do all of them at this time.
The IT department wouldn't mind getting that loaded up for me, I'd appreciate it. This might be a little longer of a presentation than maybe first readings usually get, but it's a significant project, so I wanted to make sure to get as much information out as possible. As I said, my name is Tara Tedrow, Lowndes Law, 215 North Eola Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. Let me see if I can get this. First test is whether the clicker works. Perfect. The proposed development before you tonight is called Whispering Hills. It's approximately 1,088 acres, a mixed-use development consisting of 2,942 residential units, which is not to exceed 2.7 dwelling units an acre, a 44-acre allotment for a town center. You can see the conceptual to the right, and we're going to show a video rendering of what we anticipate the project ultimately looking like at build-out. We have 451,000 square feet of retail uses, which are slotted to be neighborhood commercial style retail, compatible with the area and providing needed amenities to the residents that would be out there. In those commercial areas, 20% has to be allocated to open space. We have 3 acres dedicated to the city for support services. Those 3 acres of dedicated land can be used by the City of Leesburg however they see fit. We also have a requirement under the PUD, as there's a corresponding PUD as part of our rezoning, that sets forth very specific development standards, one of which is that a minimum of 35% of the entire project has to be open space. You can see the project aerial here spans quite a bit of space to the east of US 27 with direct connectivity onto 27. And it's an interesting area with what 27 bisects, because you can see to the west that it is significantly built out with single-family subdivisions. I think the problem with the pattern of development today is that we have subdivision after subdivision after subdivision, none of which have any connectivity, none of which have a cohesive plan, and none of which really go well together, but we allow people to develop those types of subdivisions all over the state, and they really do make a lot of sense in a lot of areas. I think for the most efficient utilization of services and to prevent urban sprawl in its finest form, this is the exact type of development that allows us to have master control over a large piece of property. Now, this property wasn't assembled by going to hundreds of owners. There's 2 owners that we are currently under contract with. One of them has 1,015 of these acres. So this is certainly a prime piece of property that's being looked at by the community, especially in the development community, is what's the future of Leesburg going to look like? You can see on the west side of 27, that is significant residential density with not a whole lot to support there, aside from a very small area down 27 that you can see in the county is zoned for commercial uses. You have an Econo Lodge, you have a small little strip center and a car wash. And then you see to the north of the subject property, you also have more significant amounts of residential density that already exists and that individuals are living in. Our request tonight is for a recommendation of approval consistent with your professional staffs as well as your planning commissions for our annexation, our comp plan amendment, as well as our rezoning. By way of background, we had our planning commission hearing with a recommendation for approval on 7/22. On 7/30, we had a Zoom meeting at the request of some residents. On 7/31, the developer went out and walked some sites with some residents who asked him to come out to their property. In August, we also had another voluntary community meeting here where we met with residents and showed them our updated plans. We've had ongoing communications. I spent a few hours yesterday on the phone with individuals who were expressing concerns. I've made myself available, as has my client, by phone and by email to anybody who's reached out to us. We even had an additional meeting today on site with some residents who border the property that we're under contract for to walk their backyard, to look from their vantage point, and to say, you're right, we'll work a little bit different on this piece of property, and maybe we can change our setbacks or our house configuration to accommodate some of those concerns. There's been a lot of outreach, and we welcome those who have come tonight that haven't spoken to us yet to still continue that dialogue, as there's time between a first and a second reading for us to continue to perfect these plans if we're able to do so. So that type of ongoing communication has allowed us to further refine our plans, and we've gone through multiple iterations of those plans, all directly to respond to issues brought up by the residents who have reached out to us. In terms of process, we're in the land use phase for entitlements, and I only go over this slide just to say that we're requesting permission for certain uses and corresponding development standards. So we had our Planning Commission hearing, which was to provide a recommendation to you all on the project. We have our first reading, and then it's transmitted to the Department of Economic Opportunity. Given the size and the scope of this project, that's probably a 60-day turnaround, but because there's a 10-day period, business days after tonight, to transmit it, and then it comes back, and then it has to be scheduled, I assume we're looking at 90 days between a first and a second reading. I hope the residents that haven't reached out yet will reach out in those 90 days, as we've been as responsive as possible and have made some substantial changes in responses to things that we've heard. If we are approved on a second reading by City Council, that is where we get into a detailed site study and engineering work phase. In one of our community meetings, we were asked very specific questions about drainage and where exactly certain utility lines would go, or why can I not show where every house on the property is going to be. And the reason is simply because, one, that's not required at the entitlement phase when you have conceptual PUD plans, but two, we've spent about 7 figures already just getting to this point, and after the second reading, it's about 7 figures of just studies that you have to do on a project of that size. Not saying we're getting sympathy or kudos for that amount of money. That's what it takes to get a good project developed. But that's when we do the detailed site analysis and figure out all of those very hyper-specific questions and answers on drainage and lot layouts and what's even developable. What are the soils? What will they support? Should a golf course go there? Or are we going to have to put a home somewhere different than maybe we showed it on our initial concept plan? So I just hope that those tonight who might think they want more detail, some of that detail just doesn't come at this phase of entitlements, but we've tried to give as much as is absolutely available. When it comes to the PUD development standards, we were given the PUD by the city staff prior to our Planning Commission hearing, and we had no input on it. And I say that so everybody understands that the PUD was not written by the applicant. We, as the development team, didn't modify it before it got put out, publicly noticed to everybody. We got it at the same time that the residents saw it. And those development standards were created by your staff and specifically curated to come up with what they believe to be the most consistent and compatible development, given the area that we're in and given the type of projects that Leesburg wants to see in the future, and to set that bar high. So we have phasing on our project. You can see our plan shows that it would be built out in multiple phases over time. We have a commercial development track summary, which shows some different tracks throughout the project that would total up to that 451,000 square feet over about 43 acres of the 1,088. And then we have C3 zoning standards for things that we would be allowed to do on the site. Again, minimum 20% open space, and then very specific architectural standards that we would have to abide by. In terms of residential units, our initial PUD allows for up to 2,942 residential units over the entirety of the property, which equals out to about 2.7 dwelling units per acre at the end of the day. Now, we've gone back and we've revised our conceptual plan, which I'll show you, and we had some questions as to why can't you tell us the exact density that you're going to build at the end of the day? And quite frankly, it's because we don't know until we get out there and do that detailed site work that we talked about. Once you deduct the amount of space needed for setbacks, landscaping, buffers, open space, wetlands, conservation areas, stormwater ponds, lot size minimums, streets, sidewalks, utilities, amenity areas, golf course, equestrian trails, all of that just eats away at the amount of space that you can put physically a home anywhere on our project site. So we don't know what that's actually going to look like at the end, but we were able to receive the support of your staff and your planning commission for that as the maximum density that could be permitted if it could even fit. Sorry that some of this is like a vision test with how small that font is, but this shows you the residential development broken up into different areas. When we first submitted our project, the entirety of it was 50 and 60-foot lots. In response to residents' requests, we changed that to up to multi-acre lots rather than all 50 and 60-foot lots. So you can see the areas in yellow, for example, would be some of that higher density. The areas in the blue are things that would be 1 to 2 acre lots rather than 50-foot lots. We show 10 to 15,000 square foot lots in some areas, and then 100+ foot lots as well. And the red would be that town center and that supportive commercial. In terms of residential development standards, we're required under the PUD to have architectural diversity, maximum 2-story building height, minimum 2-car garage, and some minimum setbacks depending on the building footprints that are actually established for different size lots. I'm not going to read all of these out, but these are the development standards that your staff decided upon in terms of what we would need to build and how this end product needs to look for residential density, and how we need to have a variation in those architectural styles so that it's not a cookie-cutter community where every single home looks exactly the same and you can barely find your own house without GPS in there. This is going to be something very different where we want to have that architectural diversity and have a standout community that is, I think, going to be incredibly impressive and a legacy project for the city. In terms of landscaping, all along the perimeter of our property, anywhere we are next to anyone's home, we have to have at least 2 every 100 linear provide a separation from where our lots would be. So we're going to have some significant buffers from those existing residences, and we have changed the lot sizes significantly from 50 foot up to multi-acre for some of those residents to directly respond to their concerns. Our landscaping has to meet water-wise and Florida-friendly landscaping requirements. Landscaping has to be per code, and there's some very specific requirements in the PUD. In terms of roadways, our major access is from US 27 with a boulevard-type access and a roundabout that you can see conceptually laid out on our plans. Sidewalks to provide cross connections to all res and recreational areas. Golf cart paths and parking for golf carts in the main boulevard and internal to our project. And then golf cart paths are permitted inside our residential neighborhoods as well, with some parking in those areas to accommodate those who would rather travel by golf cart internal to the project than by vehicle or else. And then the city also will not be responsible for the maintenance or repair of our project roadways. So we are not building a bunch of roadways and then handing it off to you to pay for it. That's going to be the responsibility of the developer or the creation of an HOA or another mechanism. In terms of recreational requirements, there's a minimum of 13.5 acres of recreational space. Our plan has a significant amount of more recreational acreage than that, but that's just what the PUD says. And just so the residents who may want to live there in the future know, we are not just going to build homes and never leave you with any amenities. So we are required at certain phasing of our project to have amenities in place so that before we can pull a CO on a certain number of homes each time, those amenities already have to be developed so that our residents can have those to enjoy. Required amenities include golf course, equestrian center. 1 is already there. We've increased that to 2. Swimming pool with a clubhouse, playground areas, trails, and other activities like ball fields. And the required golf course and equestrian areas are not used to compute our required recreational acreage. So that's why I say 13.5 certainly does not capture how much we actually have. That's just the minimum for other parts of recreational, but our golf course and our equestrian are in addition to that. When it comes to the traffic analysis, we have our traffic engineer here if you have very specific questions, but this just shows you how far out we have to study when it comes to traffic and impacts of a project. And those requirements are dictated not by a developer, they are dictated, and the studies and the methodologies utilized come from the Lake Sumter MPO. The city reviews it, the county reviews it, Lake Sumter MPO reviews it. They give us input and comments and tell us the type of improvements that you would need to make in order to mitigate for any impacts of your project. You can see the roads shown here are 4-lane interior and 2-lane on the exterior. One of the things to note is that we kept a lot of the two-lane roads that are in question that are outside of our project. We are not intending to impact those, like number 2 Road and Dewey Robbins. We were asked to take our main entrances off those roads. The first conceptual plan we had was going to put basically all of our project traffic on number 2 Road, and that's how we designed it. And then we were told by residents that they did not want us to put cars out there. They asked us to come drive those roads, to go see them with them, and to understand the impact that that could have. And so we took that access point away. And that would be a access point that'd be allowable for emergency vehicles. So you can imagine that's very infrequent. And then otherwise, it's just to allow for the 40 homes that would be in the Project M area to be able to come across into the main entrance. But other than that, we are not allowing our project traffic to go out onto number 2 Road. So we have taken that off again in direct response to what the residents expressed concerns about. We also conceptually show a 2-lane road going out to 27. We have to get the permission from adjacent property owners for that access onto 27, but my client has even offered to pay the upfront costs to build infrastructure through other people's properties that have been approved already. So we are willing to fund those costs to get access to 27 if we're able to negotiate that. But there's also some existing right-of-way that isn't platted on Windmill Road now that we may be able to work with the county. So that's an ongoing conversation, but it's just rest assured to those here tonight that we have removed that access onto number 2 at their request. This long list of changes that would need to be made came from Lake County Public Works, but this was based on number 2 Road being our main access point along with our 27. So we don't know if any of those are even going to apply. So we are going to go through that process of updating our traffic study after tonight. We've already had this detailed discussion with your city staff, so we would be able to come back and give you a better understanding of really what that total figure looks like in terms of how much we would pay. We estimate regardless it's probably $20–30 million of just roadway improvements that we would be doing internal external to the project. This shows the windmill connection point we were looking for because it is adjacent to our property, but we're going to work hard with staff and other property owners to try to work that out. So our original concept plan, I think you can see the very small lot lines all over the entirety of the project is what we submitted. This is what your staff gave us a recommendation of approval on. This is what your planning commission gave us a recommendation for approval on. And we changed it. Not because we got pushback from the city, but we changed it because we wanted to accommodate very specifically the concerns of residents who were willing to engage with us. So you can see our revised concept plan shows you those layout of areas. Now we were able to do some lot lines on some of what I call the easier areas to plot out, and that was area M and area L. So you can see a before and after, which I'll show you in just a second, but we plotted out some recreational areas, again, conceptual, to show where we would put our pool, our petting zoo, pickleball court, the water park area, community garden, a farmer's market, 2 equestrian centers, the golf course, tennis courts, dog parks. Those are all amenities that we were going to be putting throughout the entirety of our project. Then these are the trails. You can see in pink, those would be the equestrian trails, because this is meant to cater to an equestrian community and have those trails all over to provide that opportunity to those who may own horses or may want to just come ride on horse trails for the day, as well as 8-foot wide golf cart paths with jogging and exercise trails, so those multi-use paths that provide connectivity throughout the community. I think will be a huge amenity and draw for our residents. And of course, those equestrian trails will have to be adequately sized for horses to be able to pass each other, so looking at about 10 feet of width on those trails. Before and after. So here's parcel M before. Residents said, please don't do that. So we took it from 488 lots to 41. In about 10 years, I've never had a client willing to do that, ever. Usually they would say, how can I get 588 homes into parcel M? And they took out 447 homes from that parcel to address the concerns I think we heard from maybe 2 or 3 homeowners. Area L is another one, 225 lots, reduced that by about 197 homes. Again, in direct response to those neighbors who lived next to those lots that we abut and said, can you reduce the density there? And we took it from 50-foot lots and made those 1 to 2 acre lots to respond to those concerns. And we met with some of the residents who actually live next to this area today at their house and talked through, again, some things that we can do to try to get them to feeling 100% certain for supporting the project. In terms of voluntary plan changes, Now, we're going to request approval, obviously, first reading, but our hope is that on a second reading, these additional changes that we're proposing can be incorporated into the PUD, because we don't want anybody to think we're giving empty promises that are not going to actually end up in the PUD at the end of the day. So just some additional prohibited uses. There's a whole list of uses that are prohibited, but we wanted to make sure people knew we weren't trying to put discount dollar stores and consignment shops and pawn shops and smoke shops and junk and scrap yards or landfills or slaughterhouses or anything like that. I heard some of these things get raised, and I'm like, let's immediately put that in the no list so everybody knows those are not things that we're trying to do as part of this project. We're going to update that figure 3 in the PUD to make sure that our bigger lots are reflected, because right now it's all 50 and 60 foot lots, I'm sorry. And then on section 14C, at the last Planning Commission hearing, one of the planning commissioners very specifically said, 3 acres is great for the city. What are you going to give to the school board? And we hadn't been asked to give anything to the school board. So I said, okay, we'll give 5 acres to the school board. And the school board said, can you make that 15? And we said, okay, if you want 15 acres, if you can, under your school siting policies, which are quite robust for Lake County, in the siting policies that they have to look to as to where they could even put a school, we had very preliminary conversations, and they said they approved this language. It hasn't gone before the school board. No site has been selected, but it's just us as the developer saying, if you would like to put a new school, we're willing to give the property, and we put the language there to say here or near this. So if my client owns property near this, we could dedicate that as well to the school board. Section 20E, we were told that some people said, we don't want more golf courses. We don't want 27 holes. That's too much. So we said, okay, we'll do 9. And they said, okay. So we reduced it down to a minimum of 9 golf course holes instead of putting the 27 that we had initially proposed. We added this as well. Residents said, we think golf courses can be bad for the environment. So I went and researched what's the best management practices certification you can get for a golf course. And it is apparently the Audubon Cooperative Sanctuary Program for Golf Courses, or an equivalent organization if that somehow becomes defunct in the next 2 years, as a certified Audubon Cooperative Sanctuary based on their environmental management practices for golf courses. So that's another standard that we're going to impose upon ourselves to strive to achieve. And just for those who don't know what the ACSP is, they help golf courses with key environmental components like environmental planning, wildlife and habitat management, chemical use reduction and safety, water conservation, water quality management, outreach and education. So if you're designated as one of these sanctuaries, it's because you've met with their environmental management team, you've met their standards in all 6 of those key areas. And then achieving that certification means that we are able to reach those very high levels of environmental protection on our golf course. We would have to develop and implement an environmental management plan, document the results, host a site visit, go through quite a few steps, and have to go through recertification as well, as long as that golf course remains in place. In addition, there was a provision with regards to wall buffers, and I saw that those buffers were pretty robust, which we're fine with. I mean, a 6-foot wall, if that's what the city wanted us to do. But then I thought, well, we might be next to some residents who might not want a wall. Maybe they want a split rail fence, and maybe they're okay with us doing a split rail fence and more canopy trees rather than a solid wall next to them. So I asked staff, can we just give some flexibility for us to instead say that if the adjacent property owner gives a written affidavit that says they're okay with something other than a 6-foot wall, that we can do that? And they said yes, and that was really, again, just to give the neighbors some flexibility. If they say, please don't put a wall, we want to work something else out, I wanted to make sure we had the flexibility to do that without fully amending a PUD just to accommodate a neighbor's concern. Then at a community meeting, which is why I think these community meetings are so valuable, we heard some concerns about lighting. And residents said, we love that we can see the stars at night. That's certainly something that we think our residents would love as well. And so there are some minimum standards under section 21 of your PUD. And we said, okay, let's talk about dark sky. Dark sky actually has a lot of different levels of lighting standards. So if you say dark sky, I can have a pretty bright sky under dark sky. It just means that I can't maybe have as bright of a sky. So instead, we went and very specifically put a new section we're proposing that we may utilize dark sky and design them based on lighting zones throughout the development. And so we would implement lighting zone standards from the International Dark Sky Association, certainly a group that knows more about this than me, in order to protect the character of the area. And so the 2 lowest lighting zones that we found were the LZ1 and LZ2, which are low ambient and moderate ambient, and those are places where they very specifically say, lighting is used for safety and convenience, but it doesn't have to be continuous or uniform. It won't adversely affect flora and fauna or disturb the character of the area. Areas where human activity is moderate or light level, so we're just going to try to design it very specifically throughout the project so you don't just have what feels like maybe parking lot lighting all next to you in this area, and that the city staff would review and approve our lighting plans based on those standards and based on their safety considerations. And so we put those as additional proposed conditions in our PUD. So just as a summary, we've removed our main access point onto number 2 and agreed not to transition that to Dewey, and are looking to get access across other ways directly to 27. We volunteered to donate land to the school board if they said they needed it. We're negotiating that access to try to have it direct again, and are offering to pay upfront costs for that construction. We've agreed to reduce the required minimum number of golf courses from 27 to 9 and strive for that certification I described. We've added in a community garden, petting zoo, second equestrian facility, pickleball court, and some more recreational facilities and a farmer's market component to just increase that open and green space opportunities that we have. We've increased our lots buffering certain existing residential properties from 50 to up to 70 to now up to multiple acre lots. We've agreed to increase vegetative buffers significantly next to some properties, and we have enhanced our dark sky standards as well to protect against light pollution. When it comes to your GMP and code policies, one thing I want to mention too is I know a lot of residents have brought this up to me, and they bring up the RPA, and they talk about the RPA policies, which are not under the City of Leesburg. But when you look at the RPA policies, there's some standards that they specifically enumerate, such as 2-lane county roads. Our analysis shows that we would keep those county roads 2 lanes within the RPA, so we wouldn't be modifying that. The RPA calls for maximization of buffers and open space and to provide opportunities for passive recreation. Certainly our plan and our PD are maximizing those. Talks about protection of common open space by perpetuity, by easement, plat, or other similar recording. Well, the PUD already says that if there are wetlands on site that have to be protected, we have to dedicate those in conservation easements. Maintaining, enhancing, and protecting corridors for wildlife movement. We've hired Modica to do our wildlife initial surveys and to help us come up with those wildlife management plans, and we have provided for the significant open space and maximization of buffers and protecting other areas to accommodate that. RPA also talks about minimization of alteration of terrain. My client does not intend to come out here and mass grade this property. One of the beautiful parts, I don't think we can call it Whispering Hills if it is not undulating the way it is today. So we are wanting to preserve the natural beauty and the terrain of our site to the greatest extent possible to allow for people to really take advantage of how beautiful that property is. And then the use of native landscaping is also required under the RPA, and our PUD requires landscaping to meet water-wise and Florida-friendly landscaping. So in a lot of respects, even though it's not specifically referenced in the PUD, and even though it's not under your city code, those are things that our project is meeting. When it comes to GMP and code policies, the project would add residential and non-residential features to the city, further the vision of your GMP, including certainly a diverse array of housing options, single and multifamily, varying prices and sizes, having those complementary retail uses strategically located to take advantage of access to 27, significant acreage for recreation and open space, some age-restricted components. We show an ALF on our property, and amenitized lake and water features. Your specific policies, I won't read these out verbatim, but they talk about how you want to provide opportunities for those diverse residential areas and how you want to have efficient use of developable land. And I think this is a great example of efficiently using developable land in a way that doesn't just have all lots crammed in highest density absolutely possible, but instead incorporates in a master planned community, something where you will have quality control and a really comprehensive approach to future smart growth just from one project. We also meet your comp plan policies about mixed-use development, certainly, which is encouraged within the city with appropriate buffers for compatibility. That's outlined a lot in the PUD. Also to ensure the population, housing densities, employment patterns are consistent. One of the great things about the planning principle of live, work, play is that people should not have to be auto-dependent to do everything. You shouldn't have to get in a car to enjoy anything outside of the physical walls of your home. And so we hope that there are communities that we can develop where you are able to take a golf cart and go to get lunch, or go to your local pharmacy, or go to a retail store, the ice cream parlor, whatever it might be in the little village center. We hope that those complementary uses will be incorporated in all developments of this magnitude, but certainly your comprehensive plan encourages it. There's also rezoning criteria, which we've shown that we meet those criteria very specifically. Proper utilization in terms of drainage, in terms of providing for transportation networks that would be needed, completing within a reasonable period of time as required under the PUD, and that we're allowing for something that's going to be an orderly, sustainable development over time. Also, we are going to be able to have, there's going to be quite a bit of growth in the future. I think if you look at the population projections, the amount of growth coming into this area over the next 5-10 years is going to be tremendous. So if not us, somebody is going to try to come and continue to develop, because people want to live in the city of Leesburg. They want these beautiful areas to live. And so how do you sustain that growth over time? And I think we've come up with a way that does it, that meets your principles under your growth management plan. It is not a growth mitigation plan. It is not a growth prohibition plan. It is a growth management plan. And I think we've done that very effectively, and we certainly have the support of your professional staff and your planning commission. We'll also be designing it to ensure appropriate buffering and setbacks and help absorb a significant portion of future anticipated growth, provide for comprehensive development of large areas, and propose that diverse mix of uses in accordance with your GMP. So you have a staff recommendation. This is in the staff report. Again, I won't read this out, for both our rezoning, our comp plan amendment, that there are giving recommendations citing specifically to your comprehensive plan, to your code, and as to how we meet those standards. So our request is for recommendation of approval consistent with your professional staff and your planning commissions for our annexation, rezoning, large-scale comp plan amendment to transmit it to DEO with our new suggested conditions of approval. We have a video, if we put this together just to try to show what the project could look like at full build out, so we're able to get the video teed up. They say pictures are worth 1,000 words, so I'll say 1,000 less and let you watch this instead. So I think we might have to click to the web page to play it. You at least have a preview of what the music's going to sound like, so don't get too sick of it yet.
While we're waiting on the video, does the commission have any comments, concerns, before we let the public continue to speak? Fred, just one question. With the changes in the PUD, will that be consistent for us to move forward, or?
No, all of the changes are reductions in density, increases in lot sizes, that sort of thing. If they had increased density or made it more intense, you may have to go back. But reducing the intensity of the development doesn't require another review at Planning Commission.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
And as this video wraps up, we appreciate all the time you gave me in giving this presentation tonight. I know there's some members of the public who are going to want to come and comment while they're here, and we'd appreciate the opportunity to be able to respond to any of those questions or comments received. And hopefully anybody who hasn't talked to us before tonight, who's new, would please come get our contact information if there's questions that we can answer for you after this evening. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you very much. Commissioner, after the presentation, any comments at this time?
I've got a couple. Before the second reading, I'd like to see some sort of cap for a maximum amount of age restriction as a percentage of the total lots.
I'm sorry, so you want a cap on
The maximum percentage of age-restricted development that would like to incorporate in the annexation agreement?
So we have shown, it has 250 as the ALF unit allocation. Are you wanting something in addition to that?
I'm okay with the 250. If that's the intent is just the 250, then I just want that in the PUD that it's 250 max in the annexation agreement.
For
Can't
age
ever do more
restricted?
than that. Yeah.
Okay, because we were going to do age targeted in some areas, but we knew that 250 were absolutely age restricted, but we'll take a look at that and see.
Yeah. Age restriction. I mean, we can't tell you how you can market the property, but
Right, understood, okay.
And then on the golf course, so it was a minimum of 9 holes. So I'm okay with the 9 holes. Anything above that, I'm going to want a provision in there that you can't use the city's CUP for watering the golf course. So you either have to provide your own reuse or get your own CUP.
Okay.
I'd like to see some specifics on the equestrian facility before the second, how many stalls, what exactly is going to be built there, just to ensure we don't have a 10-acre fenced piece of grass and call it an equestrian facility, which I don't think what you would just like to see it in
There is a facility already there on one of the plots, but we're going to get you some more information
Okay.
on both of
All
those.
right. And that's it for my comments right now.
Thank you, sir. Any other commission comments? Thank you, Ms. Yes, sir.
I was going to say, I want to comment that it's nice to see a master plan community that's not targeting the retirees.
Okay, Ms. Terry, we're gonna have public comment, but stay close by. Are there any more public comments for the applicant at this time or the commission?
My name is Terry Blessing, and I live on Blue Sink Road, right off of Number 2 Road. I travel Number 2 Road every day to Bushnell, where I work. Some say that I can have alternative routes, that I can go down Bloomfield, but if anybody's ever been down Bloomfield, it's worse than Number 2 Road. I'm about to embark this week on something very difficult, trying to protect and maintain the integrity and safety. I am doing this by myself, with only the love and support of my neighbors and my family. For this reason, I want to thank the Marsan Group for taking that access off of Number 2 Road. I have been a part of the multiple groups that they have met. They have been very willing and open to any and all of our suggestions, understanding the necessary safety. I have learned that many people along Number 2 Road own to the pavement or to the center of the road, making it very difficult for people to just come in and think they're going to widen the road all the way to State Road 19. Their concern on the preservation and of the trees and the lifestyle is absolutely excellent. I wish we could see more of that. The last thing I'm going to say is I feel that they did their due diligence. I don't know where Jodelle is, but she is wonderful. That's their traffic engineer who diligently worked to look at Number 2 Road and say, we just can't put an access there. I want to say also that I think it's the responsibility of this commission to ensure that your developers are presenting to you accurate information. And if not, I know I don't get to vote for you, but I know that there's a lot of other people, and you neighbor my community, and I value what you do, and I value what the staff does, but we have to be consistent. I have nothing further to say, except to say thank you very much. I really do think that they are willing to work with all of the residents, so if you have specific issues, I highly recommend that you reach out to them.
Thank you, Alder. Any other public comment?
Hello, my name is Deborah Shelley, East Dewey Robbins Road, and also with Citizens for the Preservation of Rural. I too would like to thank Ms. Tedrow and Mr. Marsan for their willingness to work with the community. Certainly appreciate the changes that you've done thus far and delineating some of the trails and the other things that the residents asked for. The density is still a concern and it's still a big issue. This is a rural protection area. It's a designated rural protection area. I see that you've changed the two areas from 488 to 41 and the 225 to 30. So I think that if something like that could be done in some of the other areas, I think that would help the residents to understand what the actual density might be. You're still asking for the maximum entitlement of 2,900 units, but you can subtract because you have subtracted in two areas. So the density is still a concern. We certainly appreciate the addition of the 2-acre lots in those certain areas. And one reason we're here this evening is the Interlocal Service Boundary Agreement, or the ISBA. The ISBA allows for annexations that are not contiguous, not compact. You can create enclaves, but there's one section in the ISBA rules that says lands to be annexed must be urban in character. So I would submit that our rural protection area is not urban in character. Under the county Rural Protection Area Comprehensive Plan, there are other policies that deal with preserving the rural protection area, protection of rural neighborhoods, protection of rural lifestyles. So I hope we can continue the dialogue in the future to see what we can do to make this, the development more integrated with the rural community. And I do have some formal comments, as I mentioned, to submit. So thank you so much, and I look forward to continuing the dialogue with Tara at the community meetings. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Any other public comments on this item? Yes, sir. You can skip there.
My name is Lee Graffis. I am the HOA manager for the plantation at Leesburg. I just want to say too, working with Tara, they were the ones that reduced the golf course at our request. A lot of people may or may not know the plantation at Leesburg just bought the golf courses that were in our property and made them our own. So we appreciate them making that adjustment so we can continue to be successful along with our sister communities that have golf courses in the area. We all know golf courses became overabundant. And we're trying to get them back to the quality that they are without putting out too many golf courses. So they were very nice in making that immediate decision to cut that down at our request. I have a very vocal community. The buzz on this project has been very low except for supportive. My community and residents have been very happy hearing about all the adjustments that have been made. They are very excited to have those amenities come. And we are a little more rural than everybody, and I understand we are not part of the city, but that doesn't mean we're not a good partner with the city. And my residents would love to see all those amenities and be able to be that close to them in order to have something that they can't get unless they drive miles out of our community. So I would just like to thank all of you for making this consideration. And as Tara said, they're doing such a great job making this a whole master plan. I've been in real estate market for 20 years all over Florida. Nothing's worse than piecemeal, throwing communities in everywhere. Having something master plan will just benefit everybody.
Thank you, sir. Any more comments?
Hello, my name is Brian Creaser, Howie in the Hills. I live on South Dewey Robbins Road. And just making reference to the rural protected area, it's a rural protected area, and it doesn't seem like it's being protected by anybody but us who live in these rural protected areas. We moved to Howie in the Hills because we wanted to get away from all this urban development. I grew up in the big city, and we moved out here for work. Everywhere I've been, from Sarasota down to St. Cloud, it's all development. And why does all the land around here have to be developed? I mean, they talk in their presentation about maintaining the integrity of the rural community and the beauty of the rural community. Well, I happen to think it looks beautiful the way it is. And other issues too, I mean, what about wildlife fleeing? Okay, I made reference to this last time we had here. We talked about gopher tortoises digging under houses and things. We had to deal with that when we built our house on the acreage that we have. Okay, and last time we were here, we were talking about it. It's costing about $2,500 per tortoise to relocate it to a different site, conservation sites. Well, now that's at $5,000, and we're doing a job right now. We can't even find a site that will take anything. And that $5,000 gets passed on to the cost of other people. And with all this development going on, when you start to bulldoze and clear all this land out of here, where's all this wildlife going to go? What it does, it goes to other people's lots. The people that are still living here that have to deal with this and look at all this development, it goes to their lots. And then once it starts burrowing in there, it gets under their foundation, it weakens the structure of their house. And how many people right now, with the cost of inflation and stuff because of stupid policies coming out of Washington, have extra money to go and pay for somebody to go and do this? Okay, and once you get a permit, when I built my house, we got a permit so we can relocate them to the back of my property. Well, if they relocate and burrow under my house now, by law, I cannot move them again. So it's just disturbing. I'd like to know where these developers are going to move all this wildlife to, and how is this going to affect all of us. And I'm sorry, I mean, the presentation that they have there, maintaining the rural life and stuff, I mean, I see pictures of houses that are not far from where I live right now that are in there. And when they say they're not building cookie cutter houses, what I saw is the same type of houses that I built down in St. Cloud that was basically a box with some trim on it. And it's the same development that's going on 27 with KB Homes. And I mean, where's it end? I mean, yes, we have a big population coming into Florida and stuff, but one reason people are coming in here is because we have a nice way of life here. We're a low-tax state. Most people coming in here and going to other states are fleeing states that are a total train wreck right now. And when you talk about traffic, I mean, it's nice, yeah, they take the entrance off of number 2 Road and Dewey Robbins Road, okay? But you can't tell me that there's not going to be a traffic situation. I just sat here and listened to him talk about traffic situations on Pine Avenue in Leesburg and things, and you're going to bring 3,000 houses here on Dewey Robbins. We're talking about Hodges development, another 400, and there's umpteen dozen more developments going on around here. And you tell me that there's not going to be traffic problems, and also what the gentleman who first spoke about the schools. You're going to bring all these people in, and you're going to have overcrowded schools and things, and the kids are going to suffer. That's my 2 cents. I'm not for this, and what this presentation here, I'm not convinced on this and things, and it might be a moot point, but I'll stand here and fight.
Thank you, sir. Are there any more public comments? We'll move to... If you're going to make a public comment, please move forward as quickly as possible, please. Yes, sir.
My name is Jeff Frizz. I live on Turkey Lake Road. And I agree. I think it was a good presentation, but what holds the developer to doing exactly what they say? That's one question. The other one is the rural protection area. How does developing the area actually protect the area? And I don't know if any of y'all have looked at the Rural Protection Code in the Lake County site, but it talks about 5 to 40 acre lots, not 1 to 2 acres at the largest. So I think they've done a good job. I haven't had the pleasure of speaking with Tara, but would like to in the future. I think they could do more. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Lori Howell. I live on Number 2 Road in Howey in the Hills. I had some unusual flooding at my property in 2018, and I did speak to Mr. Massey's ranch hands during that time, and they told me that he also was having some pretty bad flooding on his property. It was up over the fence. And my concern is that if there's already flooding on the property and they are moving dirt and moving water around, we're going to have problems with extra flooding on my property, and if we're doing retention ponds and things like that in the development, that it's going to create a problem with sinkholes like they have in the villages, where they have sinkholes opening in the middle of 441. I did talk to Tara earlier today about it, and she is taking that into consideration, and I want to thank them for all the concessions they've made so far. But the fact is, when I moved to that property, I bought in the rural protection area, and it was 5 acres to every house. And I find it a little disturbing. Thank goodness we have a developer that is willing to work with the community, because it's a little disturbing to me that they're looking out for us more than some of the elected officials are looking out for us. And the developer is actually putting more into it than I feel like anybody else. So that's it, and I appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? This time that will lay over to our future city council meeting. We'll go to 6B2. Someone like to introduce it, please.
I'll introduce it. Has to be read by title only.
Thank you.
An ordinance amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan of the City of Leesburg, changing the future land use map designation of certain property containing 1,088 plus minus acres from Lake County Rural to City of Leesburg Neighborhood Mixed Use for property generally located east of U.S. Highway 27, north of Dewey Robbins Road, and south of County Road 48, as legally described in Sections 24 and 25, Township 20 South, Range 24 East, and Sections 20, 29, 30, 31, 32, Township 20 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Any comments from the commission?
Is this the one that we need to transmit?
This is transmit.
Yeah.
So we'll take a motion to transmit.
Yeah. Make a motion to transmit to the state.
Second.
All right, moved and properly second. Any discussion from the commission? From the public? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck?
Yes.
Commissioner Bury?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Mayor Christian?
Yes. And what we did, we just voted to transmit this to the state. We do have the ordinance on the floor. Are there any public comments on this ordinance to amend the future land map? If not, this item will also lay over to a future city commission meeting. Item 6B3 is also an ordinance. Someone like to introduce it, please?
I'll introduce to be read by title only, please.
Thank you.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, changing the zoning on approximately 1,088 plus minus acres from Lake County A agricultural to City of Leesburg PUD planned unit development to allow for mixed-use development for property generally located east of U.S. Highway 27, north of Dewey Robbins Road, and south of County Road 48, as legally described in Sections 24 and 25, Township 20 South, Range 24 East, and Sections 20, 29, 30, 31, 32, Township 20 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Any commission comments on the rezoning? Any public comment? This item will also lay over to a future city commission meeting. Item 6C is non-routine items. 6C1 is where to announce that this is a public hearing for the fire assessment. Item 6C2 is a resolution. Would someone like to introduce it, please?
I'll introduce it. Has to be read by title only.
Thank you.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, relating to the provision of fire protection services, facilities, and programs in the City of Leesburg, Florida, imposing fire protection assessments against assessed property located within the city for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2021, approving the rate of assessment, approving the assessment roll, and providing for an effective date.
Do you have a motion?
I'll move for approval.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Moved and probably second. Any discussion from the commission? From the public? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Commissioner Bury,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
Mayor Christian.
Yes. Item 6C3 is a resolution. Would someone like to introduce it, please?
I'll introduce, can this be read by title only?
Thank you.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, adopting the language access plan for limited English proficiency persons for the Rebuild Florida General Infrastructure Program, Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, Disaster Mitigation Program, and other federally funded grant programs to harden the City of Leesburg Griffin Road facility and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Do you have a second? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bury,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Mayor Christian.
Yes. Item 64 is to consider the American Recovery Act potential projects. Turn it over to Mr. Minner.
Yeah, the purpose of this item is to solicit input from the commission and to formalize how we'll spend the American Recovery Act funds that we will be receiving. The city will be receiving about $11.8 million. It's technically about $11.85 million. And our spending recommendations for you would be as follows. $400,000 for the Boys and Girls Club. That would be operational revenue replacement. That's to assist the boys and girls to ensure that they have a program for the youngsters in the community. They were significantly impacted from COVID. The second item is the CDCs, both West CDC and Leesburg CDC, to receive $750,000. The purpose of that is to make sure that the funds get in the hands of those affected most by COVID. Because those are not-for-profit organizations, I would also ask the commission that we enter into formal agreements with them to review the projects that they pick in the future and to ensure that the projects that are picked are qualifying for the American Recovery Acts. The next recommendation is a revenue replacement for the City of Leesburg. According to the federal government, the City of Leesburg did have a revenue loss. The part of the American Recovery Program was a formulaic approach where when we ran the numbers, the city is eligible for about $1 million to recoup our quote-unquote loss. If you take this money, then that frees the city up to do some various other projects. Recommendations there for you immediately would be, one, the I don't know if you want, ecotourism is not the right, but the sports marketing contract with Allison Strong Group can be paid from those funds then. Also, the trails money that we had discussed can be paid with those funds, and that leaves about $500,000 of funds left. Another consideration in that may be to shift around, and we'll talk about this on Thursday, some funding. Instead of increasing the gas contribution for fiscal year 22, you use cash. And I can give you some more detail on that. Earlier this evening, we also talked about the Pine Street redevelopment projects at $2.4 million there. And then finally, the wastewater treatment plant. As you know, as we move out of the increase, the rehab project, we'll probably end up moving into a time where we'll need to expand Turnpike plant from 4.5 MGD to 6 MGD. We estimate that that's going to be about a $30 million cost. So the utility expansion and improvement portion of the Recovery Act, that project would be eligible for funds there. So at $6.5 million, you, not quite a third, get that project covered. So that's extremely helpful for the fund. Those projects total 11.8 million. There's about $57,000 left, which I would recommend that you reserve to pay GSG. We contracted with them, I think, at a previous meeting. I think it was the last one or the time before, where GSG will help us with the paperwork and the administration and those type of things. And then that contract is reimbursable with the recovery funds. So all of those projects line out. The money comes in again 2 draws. We still have yet to receive the first draw, which will be about half of that 11.8 million. And then in the spring, we look for the second draw. And then by 2025, all the funds are supposed to be spent. We targeted these projects because, again, the infrastructure portion of it helps us mitigate some of our costs, benefits the whole community, and then we replenish some of our costs on a citywide basis, and then we also use the funds to target those who were affected most by the project. So I think it's a well-rounded approach and gets the money out to the projects that help us the most and the folks that were affected by COVID the most. Any recommendations you have, there's no formal requirement to have a spending plan. I thought it would be a good idea for you to have this plan so that we could formalize it, announce it to the public.
Any commission comment? Thank you, Al.
The money going to the West CDC and the Leesburg CDC, on whatever projects they pick, would they bring those back to us for review and approval, or are they going to have the sole discretion on how they spend that $750,000?
I think you can set that up any way you want. My recommendation is that you probably want to review it, put together a formal contract. I don't think the CDC will have an issue with that, either CDC.
Okay. And again, I want to go on the record to say I'm not against the Pine Street redevelopment project. As I said earlier, I would like to see some other projects presented also and weigh them all against each other and see what's best beneficial to the city. So with that said, I voted against it earlier, so I wouldn't be approval of allocating $2.4 million of this money towards that project without having some other projects to compare it to.
Any other commissioners?
On the Boys and Girls Club, and I apologize just because I just got back and I didn't have time to contact them. I'm okay with it tonight, but like I'd want to see some details as to specifically how they lost revenue, where this goes in the budget. I just want to understand the $400,000, and I feel that I haven't had time to do that. And I would echo Commissioner Cannell with the CDC funding. I just would want an agreement where we would, they'd bring the projects and we would have an approval before the money is actually spent.
I just have a couple comments. Number one, I guess I don't have any solutions or recommendations tonight, but I would probably like to see us find a way to spend the money more evenly around, throughout the city, number one. And the Turnpike wastewater facility, is that strictly villages or is that other retirement communities?
No, it's going to be like, for example, the Whispering Hills type of growth.
Okay, we'll support.
The expansion is going to.
It's more than just the villages.
Yeah, actually, I would go on the record and say that the expansion up to 6 MGD will cover non-villages growth.
Okay. I wouldn't mind seeing that number pulled back a little bit, and maybe spent around, around the city, some amount, but that's all I have.
Mr. Berry, anything?
I'm good with the numbers pretty much. The Turnpike, I'd spend more money there if we had it, but what are we going to take it away from? So, I think it's a pretty good number.
Any other public comment? And before Dr. Jasper comments, I just want to say I don't think the CDC, I think Mike's Park is in the back representing the West Leesburg CDC will have any problem. I think they've already given Al a kind of a wish list on what projects they would like to see done. And on East Leesburg CDC, I can say there would be no issue with bringing the commissioner a full report on what we plan to do and when we move forward on projects. But we have identified several projects that we feel will alleviate the city of a lot of issues that we face within our police department and some of the community issues that we've seen. Some of our affordable housing rental units that we kind of got away with. We did the Magnolia Street property. We still have people actually who are living on some of our properties illegally. We have to call the police department. So we are starting to remodel on Snow Apartments. That's 9 units. And we've identified in Carver Heights will be 4 units. So that'd be almost 13 affordable rental units that we've already identified, plus I think 23 new jobs. And of course at Pine Street, when the pool is coming, I think this will accelerate East Leesburg CDC to remodel the commercial buildings on Pine Street. So I think what we've identified is ways to partner with the city to make our goals that we think are similar come to life. Dr. Jasper, you're there?
Great. Hi, once again, Dr. Jasper. I just want to make a few comments. Thank you, Al, for your breakdown. I'm so grateful for the federal government to be giving $11.8 million to the city of Leesburg. That's such a significant impact to our community. It's going to take away from money, well, it's going to add to money that we don't have to take out of our budget every year. And I just want to make a comment regarding the Pine Street renovation. I work at the hospital at UF Health, and yes, I do work at night sometimes, so I would think that street coming out of the hospital, going to the parking garage, to my car at night, and driving down Pine Street to go home, I think that would be an added plus to not only the hospital, not only to Pine Street, but to the city of Leesburg as a whole. Just the safety precautions as we beautify that area, and as you aforementioned, the swimming pool that's coming, I think that would be an added plus to spend that money since we do have those funds, and it has been a blessing, the American Recovery Act, by the government to give us those funds, and also to the CDC, West Leesburg, and also the Leesburg CDC, Boys and Girls Club. I just think all around it's a total blessing to our community. So thank you once again, Al, for your breakdown. Thank you for the city commissioners. And I just wanted to say thank you so much, and to the federal government.
Thank you. Mr. Parker?
My name is Max Parker, West Leesburg president of West Leesburg CDC. Again, I just want to thank you personally for what you have allowed us to do in West Leesburg. We work with partners. We have no problem submitting anything for approval. Again, we submitted a list of some things we would like to do. So again, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Candace Chapman with the West Leesburg CDC. Again, thank you for the recommendations and the opportunity. For the list that President Parker was alluding to, in order to lighten blighting conditions in the Carver Heights community, the list that we did submit would, I believe, bring more safety and provide avenues for people to want to come and live in the Carver Heights community. We have programs of residential curb appeal, which would change the lighting of Miss Paul, Stinson, Georgia, Waitman, and Beecher streets. We know that Carver Heights has had crime in certain areas, and revitalizing it and changing it would definitely, I think, would bring safety to the community. The commercial incubation program would be a program that we would bring before you for approval with the money that you guys are alluding to give us, would be to acquire and build property that would focus on improving temporary business locations to business owners who have businesses that were closed due to COVID-19 and or other services to the community. The residential and commercial acquisition program. Specifically, there is a store that is renowned for drugs and crime in the Carver Heights community. That is one of our major projects that we want to acquire that property and change it into a sort of farmer's market somewhere where the community could come and use that land as a positive outsource and bring in income and revenue to the community. The facade improvement grant would also, it aims to eliminate eyesores, update exteriors of subject property, and remove deterioration of properties such as Miss Paul, Nebraska, and the Circle. So these are some of the programs that we are already thinking and working toward using the $750 that you are alluding to give us. And again, my name is Candace Chapman, and I am grateful and thankful.
Thank you, ma'am.
Randy Hepburn, East Side CDC. I really would like that money to come to the east, the money that's allocated to come to the East Side CDC, because of the things that I've seen in that community as a kid and growing up, and I know we could use that money in our area. One of the things, me personally, we got buildings down there, but I would even like to open up a nice soul food restaurant so you guys can come down there and get some good soul cooking, some good cooking. And we would like to have it pleasant, so everybody would feel good about it. A few years ago, white folk wouldn't even come on Pine Street. They would be scared to come on Pine Street. We want to change that image. It's time to change these images and get down to business and be for real. We all people. So that money should come. We should be allocated. We talk about putting money everywhere else, but we just ain't putting it in our community. It's time to change that. Put some money in our community. I know it's a lot of other things, but put some money that you have never put in our community. That's why we so far behind now.
Thank you, Mr. Hepburn. Any other public comment? Commissioner Al, are you looking for?
You're good. I'll bring, we'll formalize this. I'll get you some other options that you may want to consider. And probably next month or so, we'll put together a formal resolution that kind of just pinpoints where it's going.
I was just going to mention one more thing. I don't want to fund it fully with these dollars, but could there be some allocation toward the Market Street, which is part of the master plan downtown?
Potentially.
Okay, that's all I had.
Okay, thank you, sir. Information for financial reports as of July 2021. Anything specific, Al, you need to pull out? Okay. City attorney items.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
City manager items.
Just a reminder that Thursday, 9/16, we have our first hearing on the budget and tentative millage public hearing. It's 5 o'clock. Venetian Center.
5 o'clock?
Mm-hmm.
Roll call, that's it. Roll call.
Commissioner Peterson?
Nothing tonight.
Commissioner Burry?
Nothing tonight.
Commissioner Roebuck?
Nothing tonight.
Commissioner Connell?
No.
Mayor Christian?
Yes, let me just go on record tonight. I don't know if many of you who've been around Leesburg attended city council meetings, but tonight I think we took some very bold decision making tonight as it relates to Pine Street, specifically in the CDCs of Leesburg. Mr. Hepburn, he was very vocal talking about Pine Street and the history of Pine Street. Many of you are probably aware, I don't know if you had a chance to read the federal consent decree that was signed, I think 1997. Talks about gave the city specific things that the city was required to do, as well as the hospital. On page 6 of it, talks about the city responsibility to the CDC. Al, I think when Al came to the city of Leesburg, once he settled in, and I can say not just as the mayor of city council, but as the president of the Leesburg CDC, Al has done a phenomenal job sharing financial resources, his staff, Ken Thomas in specific, who have worked with the CDC to implement and formulate and help develop the CDC plan as it states in the federal consent decree. Many of you have not heard or seen CDC board members or members of the community come to the city council beating on the table, quoting the federal consent decree. And I say that to Al Minner on record that I think he's done an admirable job. And even with the recommendation of funding, to recommend the CDCs for funding, I think it was bold. I think it was very courageous of him. And I do thank the city commission for even allowing him to make that recommendation, because in years past, this would not have happened. The federal consent decree on page 6, I think 7 says that the city should, if its funding is available, should support and fund CDC activities. The CDC could have came once we sold the fiber optic, hey, you got $7 million, give us some money. CDC didn't do that. We sold the land to the village. The CDC could say, hey, we got some money. We think you should get a CDC extra money. The CDC didn't do that. So when the federal dollars came in, I think I approached Al, and I think the West Leesburg CDC approached Al, but this was already in the making. Al already had this formulation of how he thought money should be spent to meet the federal guidelines. And I just must say to Al, you know, I'm proud to say as the mayor of our city, Leesburg has just set the tone for many cities in our communities. Eustis is getting 11-point-something million dollars. Wildwood, I think, got $3.6 million. Those communities were not even thought about, that have been blighted, that have been looked over for years. City of Leesburg, Pine Street has been looked over for many years. Carver Heights has been looked over for many years as far as financial improvements. I've been on the council for almost 18, 19 years. And everything that we've asked to do in Carver Heights and East Leesburg, it has been literally a fight from the community saying, hey, give us some funding. We need this funding. I've seen other groups coming here with just a piece of paper and some board members, and without a second thought, $500,000 were given to their organizations. So I just want to commend this commission, especially our city manager, for being bold to say there's a need in our community, and he put the recommendation forward. So I hope that this commission really understands the impact that what we're doing tonight, to look at blighted areas and be intentional to say we want to change the conditions. We hear about it, we read about it in the newspaper, our police chief can talk about it, but in order for us to make significant change, it requires significant dollars. So I'm just proud to say, as the mayor of Leesburg tonight, as a city committee and a resident of Leesburg, that we did something bold to repair Pine Street. That's been, I mean, the road jogged. If you're not paying attention, you will literally hit the curb in front of the barbecue stand. It's been that way for years. No one said, let's fix the road. So to this commission, this staff, I just want to commend you on fixing a problem that we've just become used to just living with. And I think time is out for us to say, we're going to just accept it. When we see something needs to be changed, we change it. And tonight, I think we made a big, bold effort. And I told someone, outside of signing the federal consent decree, this is probably one of the biggest moves that the city of Leesburg has made to the African-American communities in the city of Leesburg. Now, I'm going to record say that the teen center was great, the gym was great, the pool was great, but I think this has been a strategic and a well-thought-out plan for our city. And I just want to thank you for just considering to make this happen. To the West Leesburg CDC, I know you've been working on projects for a long time, and with this infusion of cash, I think it accelerates the ideas and the goals that you have. And as Commissioner Roebuck talked about the Boys and Girls Club, you know, we're partnering with the Boys and Girls Club. So I think we don't just say, hey, here's some money. We hold people's feet to the fire. Commissioner Peterson talked about the other funding. We have other nonprofits that we give $1 million in revenue that we now can do trails. Trails came and said, we want $500,000 for trails. Now we now almost have a revenue source that we can actually do some trail development in our city to continue to make our city move forward. So I just want to commend our staff and this commission on just being forward thinkers and bodacious on making a great decision on tonight. As we move forward, I look forward to seeing great things happen throughout our entire city. That's all I have for tonight. Motion to adjourn. You didn't pay how much you paid.